Do something different the next 90 days than you did the last 90 days, like picking up the books to read. Do something different, like the new health disciplines, relationship with your family, whatever it is, doesn't matter how small it is. If you'll start doing different things with the same circumstances, since we cannot change the circumstances, but we can change ourselves. We can change what we do. And then he gave me another secret to success when he said, what you have at the moment, Mr. Rohn, you've attracted by the person you've become. What you have at the moment, you've attracted by the person you've become. Few little simple principles here. Once you understand these, it starts to explain so much. Now, sometimes it's a little tough to take, blaming yourself instead of the marketplace, taking responsibility instead of putting it off on someone else. That transition sometimes is a challenging mission. And this one was a little tough for me. He said, Mr. Rohn, you've got pennies in your pocket, you've got nothing in the bank, the creditors are calling, you're behind on your promises. And he says, here's how that occurs. You've attracted, up until now, you've attracted the things to you because of the person you've become. Now I said, well, how can I change all that? He said, very simple. If you will change, everything will change for you. You don't have to change what's outside. All you've got to change is what's inside. To have more, you simply have to become more. And then he said, don't wish it was easier. Wish you were better. Don't wish for less problems. Wish for more skills. Start working on yourself, making these personal changes. And he said, it'll all change for you. Shoaff said, here's the secret, Mr. Rohn. Learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your job. Once I got that, it turned my life around. Learn to work harder on yourself than you do on your job. He said, if you work hard on your job, you'll make a living. If you work hard on yourself, you can make a fortune. Wow. If you would have known me at age 25, you would have said, Jim Rohn's a hard worker. If you'd have known me, you'd have said that. I'm the guy, I don't mind coming a little bit early, staying a little bit late. I don't mind that. You'd have said, well, Jim Rohn's a hard worker. You say, well, how come he's got pennies in his pocket and nothing in the bank and behind on his promises? Well, I was a hard worker, but I was working hard on my job, not on myself. I'm telling you, if you'll learn that simple little principle and start the process today, latest tomorrow, give you tonight to think it over. And start this whole process of personal development, work on yourself, make yourself more valuable to the marketplace. I'm telling you, you can so dynamically change your income, and economics is the least of the values that you can start earning in terms of equity if you'll start working harder on yourself than you do on your job. Work hard on yourself and develop the skills. Work hard on yourself and develop the graces. All of the stuff necessary to become more valuable to the marketplace. I'm telling you, your whole life can explode into change. Promotions, no problem. Becoming more valuable to the company, I'm telling you, no problem. Money, no problem. Economics, no problem. Future, no problem. If you just go to work on the right thing. Not get things out there to change. Don't try to change the seed. Don't change the soil. Don't change the sunshine. Don't change the rain. Don't change the mix of seasons. Let the miracle of everything that's available work for you, and start working on the inside. Work on your philosophy. Work on your attitude. Work on your personality. Work on your language. Work on the gift of communication. Work on all of your abilities. And if you'll start making those personal changes, I'm telling you, everything will change for you. Success is something you attract by the person you become. Success is not something you pursue, chase, run after. Success is something you develop, something you become. You attract success. So the whole key to unlock all the treasures, whether it's economic treasures or spiritual treasures, financial, social, personal, every way you can possibly think of, is by your own personal development. And then he added one more, which is so important, and it's probably worth the price of the seminar. Here it is. What you become is much more valuable than what you get. what you become is much more valuable than what you get. The major question to ask on the job is not what am I getting here? The major question to ask on the job is what am I becoming here? Not what am I getting, what am I becoming? So it's very important what you become. Because what you become attracts. If you become cynical, you attract cynicism. What you become attracts. So this whole subject of personal development was so vitally important to me. It changed my life. I was a millionaire by age 31. And that was just the economic part of it. It took me 6 years from age 25 to age 31. It was unbelievable. Mr. Schoaf, over a 5-year period before he died at age 49, who taught me some extraordinarily simple things. He only went to the 9th grade in school, never finished high school, never went to college, never went to university. So he put his ideas and his experiences in very simple language, which I think for me, a kid from the farms of Idaho, that simplicity was so important. Because if it would have been technical, I'd have missed it. If it would have been mystic, I would have, backed away. But it was just basic, blunt, ABC, familiar stuff that I hadn't thought of before. And he did start to remind me, and those ideas changed my life. Mr. Schoaf was the one when I said, this is all they pay. He said, you've been working 6 years, Mr. Rohn, how come you're not doing better? And I said, this is all the company pays. He says, well, that's not true. I said, no, this is my paycheck. This is all the company pays. He said, no, this is all the company pays you. I thought, that's a new way to look at it, right? He said, doesn't the company pay 2, 3, 4, 5 times this amount to other people? I said, well, yes. He said, well, then this is not all the company pays. It's all they pay you. And if you qualified, wouldn't your income grow 2, 3, 4, 5 times? I said, I suppose. So he said, we don't have to work on the company. We have to work on you. See, that was the beginning of what he called the phrase personal development. I told him things cost too much. He said, no, you can't afford them. I thought, well, that's a new concept. I hadn't thought about that. We put some of the valuable things on the high shelf, so you can't get to them until you qualify. If you want the things on the higher shelf, you got to stand on the books you read. Every book you read, you get to stand a little higher so you can get the things on the higher shelf. See, I learned those concepts. It was so incredible. And here was the most important one. Success is something you attract by the person you become. See, that phrase changed my life. Success is something you attract by the person you become. Success is not something you pursue. It's like chasing a butterfly. You can't quite catch it. Success is something you attract by becoming an attractive person. See, those were new concepts to me. I'm just working hard trying to make a living. Here's what he said to me. This changed my life. I got a chance to teach this in Moscow and across Russia. 3 visits, now the 4th. Here's what Schoaf taught me. Profits are better than wages. Nobody taught me that in high school. Nobody taught me that. I went to 1 year of college. Nobody taught me. Profits are better than wages. Wages make you a living. Profits make you a fortune. And how could you work on both a living and a fortune? He said, well, you could start part-time working on your fortune while you're working full-time on your living. I thought, wow. Now, he said, it's fun to get up in the morning. Not just getting up, go to work to pay the rent, but to get up to go to work to make a fortune. First, to make a living for my family. Second, to make a fortune. And he taught me how to make both a living and a fortune. Guess what I did? I learned how to make both a living and a fortune. And I found out anybody could do it once they get the information. And at age 25, I started receiving this extraordinary information. Here's what he said. Your income is directly related to your philosophy, not to the economy. I thought, no one ever told me that. I kept hoping the economy would change. He said, no, your philosophy has to change. I assured him that I had my fingers crossed. He said, that won't help. Then what could I do to change my income and multiply it by 2, by 3, by 5, by 10, and then multiply it by 10 again? What could I do? And he started giving me the disciplines and the process of learning the skills to change my life. This was an extraordinary man. Those were extraordinary times for me, life-changing in every manner that you can imagine, but very simple ABC concepts. Here's what I learned. Not to search for the exotic until you've discovered the basic. And those basic philosophies that he shared with me during that time were life-changing. Now, if you're excited and you're ready to change, let me give you 3 steps to start life change that can change your life, your personality, your lifestyle, everything can change. Here's the steps. Number 1, find out how things work. The first key to doing better is find out. To change your life, really, you need ideas. Libraries. No wonder this person's an extraordinary entrepreneur, building an incredible organization worldwide. Look at this library. I want you to have the same reputation. Got to build a library. I haven't read everything in my library, but I feel smarter just walking in it. My library. I was smart enough to buy it all. Now I got to be smart enough to read it all. Then I got to be smart enough to sort through it all and decide which of it is valuable enough to bet my money and my time. I want you to have that same procedure. Gather knowledge. Don't be lazy in learning. It's too important to your future. Don't be lazy in gathering information. That's why I appreciate you coming here. Appreciate you spending this much time. Appreciate you taking notes one more time. Some of you have already taken enough notes to last for a lifetime. You've been through seminars for many years of your life, but you're here one more time. And if someone else was speaking, I would be in the audience. Guess what I would be doing? Taking notes one more time. I'm telling you, never cease your quest for knowledge. Never cease your quest for learning, because the next idea may multiply the value of your life by 2, by 3, by 5, by 10. A lot of the fortunes of the world were built after the people became 50 and 60. Why? Suddenly, from a vast now amount of experience comes that next idea. And no matter how much you know, you never know when the last little piece is going to multiply it by so many times. It's unbelievable. We in the Millionaires Club invite a billionaire once in a while. Come talk to us. And he says, well, you guys are doing okay, but come on, get your act together. No telling what else you could do with the rest of your life. So, always be eager to learn. Always be eager to gather up that next bit of information that can explode your life into all kinds of equities and values. Read the books. Now, Shoaff recommended 3. Let me give you those. He recommended more, but these were the 3 that got me started. 1 was the Bible. My parents made sure I was a pretty good scholar by the time I was 18, 19. The Bible, what a collection of stories. What a collection of vision. What a collection of poetry and history. What a collection of nuances, ways to say it unmatched by any other collection of documents that I know of. The Bible. Number 2 was a book called Think and Grow Rich. Think and Grow Rich. Shoaff said to me, Mr. Rohn, doesn't that title intrigue you? I said, yes, sir. He said, wouldn't you have to get that book? I said, yes, sir. So I went searching for it. Guess where I found it? In a used bookstore. I paid less than 50 cents for it. I've still got the copy. Found out later it was a rare hardback cover. Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. Napoleon Hill. What an extraordinary little book. Helped change my life. Now another book that helped me become a millionaire by 31. Here's the title. If you're ready, say I'm ready. Ready. The title is called The Richest Man. The Richest Man in Babylon. I use this book as a textbook, teaching kids wealth by 40, 35 if you're extra bright, much sooner if you find a unique opportunity. The Richest Man in Babylon by George Clason, C-L-A-S-O-N. This book massively affected my life. Jot this down now under the title, Richest Man in Babylon by George Clason. Number one, this little book is easy to find. Easy to find. The average bookstore's got it. If they haven't got it, they can get it for you. It's easy to find. Here's number two. It's easy to buy. The most you can pay for it is $12, $15. You can borrow that from your kids. $12, $15. Kids have got the money these days, right? Use it for kids. It's in story form. You can read it. I'm telling you, in 2 or 3 concentrated evenings, you could read this little book. If you got inspired, you could read it in one evening. Lord, I would hope some out of this audience would get inspired, read this little book in one evening. You'll never be the same. You may come back to thank me years to come. Now here's number 4. It's easy not to look for this little book. And that's the heartbeat of my whole presentation so far. It's easy not to look for this little book. And now I've given you the answer to almost everything. Haven't you ever wanted a simple little formula that gave you the answer to almost everything? I've just given it to you. This is it. This is the formula. The answer to almost everything. Number 1, easy to find. Number 2, easy to buy. Number 3, easy to read. Number 4, easy not to look. That's the answer to almost everything. Someone says, how come my paycheck isn't any bigger? I've given you the answer. This is it right here. I used to think it was the economy. I used to say, this is all they pay. Mr. Schultz said, no, Mr. Rohn, that's all you're worth. I thought, whoa. New way to look at it. I said, you know, things cost too much. He said, no, let's face the real truth, Mr. Rohn. You can't afford it. I thought, new look. He said, hey, it's not it that's your problem. It's you. And this is it. This is the answer to almost everything. It's easy not to look. I've recommended this little book now to about 3.5 million people over the last 33 years. By satellite and by every other means. Guess how many have actually gone and found this little book? Answer, very few. My best guess is about 10%. Go find it based on my recommendation. You say, well, Mr. Rohn, why wouldn't the other 90% go find this little book? Answer, we don't know. What do you know? You don't know, I don't know, nobody knows. Here's my most profound philosophical statement for the day, if you're ready. Some do and some... That's how profound this stuff is. You don't need to be a technical engineer. You don't need to graduate from Harvard. This is it. Some do and some don't. In the case of this little book, about 10% do and 90% don't. That's the answer. Guess when I went and found this little book? The same day. The same day I heard about it, I went and got a copy. Someone says, well, does that make you different than most everybody else? And the answer is yes. Yes. Somebody says, why is that? We don't know. You don't know, I don't know, nobody knows. Guess how many people in America have a library card? 3%. Wisdom of the world available. Change your health, change your life, change your future, change your marriage, change your relationship with your family. There's no lack of information. But 3% of the people have a library card. 97% couldn't be bothered with the wisdom of the world. At 4:15, the guy's not headed for the library. He's headed for happy hour. 2 for 1, and it doesn't mean books. And this guy wonders why he doesn't get paid more. I'm telling you, the answer lies here. Now here's my advice. Join the 10%. Walk away from the 90%. Don't talk like they talk. Don't use excuses like they use. Join the 10% who find a little book. Join the 3% who have a library card. Guess how many people can retire from the income of their own resources when it comes time to retire? 5%. 95% wind up dependent. 5% wind up independent. I'm asking you to join the 5%. Walk away from the 95% who won't marshal their resources to a good end. I'm asking you to walk away from the careless. Walk away from those who blame an unlevel playing field. or blame the Republicans, right? Or blame their employer, or blame the economy, or blame interest rates and taxes and prices. I'm asking you to walk away from that kind of thinking. Join the 5%, join the 3%, join the 10%, and you'll have the kind of life you've always wanted. For those who do become the envy of all who watch. And the 90% wonder why it doesn't happen for them, and they wonder why you were so lucky. But your testimony will now be, here's how I did it. I went and found the book. I got me a library card. I put my finances together so that I became financially independent. I joined the 5%. I'm asking you to do that. You must take on responsibility for your own education. Now, those first few years of our life, right, we were forced to. Through high school, you got to go to school. Someone says, well, I've finished school. Well, it's okay to finish school, but here's the clue. Zig Ziglar said it well. Don't finish your education. Education is a lifetime matter. Education goes on and on. The next clue can double the resources of the values of your life. Never cease your quest for knowledge. Become self-educated. That's the clue. It's like motivation. You got to be mostly self-motivated. Life reserves all of its treasures for the self-motivated. Somebody says, boy, if somebody just come by and turn me on, what if they don't show up? I mean, you got to have a better plan for your life. Self-motivation. Now, here's the last clue, self-education. Formal education gets you a job. Self-education gets you rich. Formal education make you a living. Self-education make you a fortune. So I'm asking you to do like you're doing today. Never cease your quest for knowledge. Develop a thirst for ideas that can be life-changing, and then pass it along to your children. What's been so exciting for me, ever since I learned this stuff, I also learned ways to pass it along. At first, I passed it along to my employees. I passed it along to the people who worked for me, and some of the people that I knew in my neighborhood. But then, when I was invited to step outside my little comfortable environment of my corporate world and step out to the public like I'm doing today and share it with an audience outside, that's when my life took on a whole new dimension. And there isn't anybody here who can't share. Recommend a book. Quote someone a poem. Give someone a dialogue from a movie that causes someone to think. Quote the lyrics from a song. Give someone the benefit of just a minute or two of your experience. It may be a light in a dark place that'll help somebody to walk out of the shadows and into the sunlight. Have you by the throat. Shutting off air supply. Shutting off opportunity. Neglect is a disaster. Now here's the further compounding of the disaster. One neglect usually leads to another. Neglect to do wise things with your money, then you'll neglect probably to do wise things with your health. Neglect to do wise things with your health, you'll probably neglect to do wise things with your friendships. Neglect to do wise things with your time. Neglect to do wise things with opportunity. I'm telling you, it starts to compound. Once the house starts coming down, it starts coming down. And it finally falls in disrepair. So, the whole clue to life change, number one, is to clean up all neglect. Because the rest of it is basic and simple. I mean, how difficult is it? So the key is to not learn another 100 things. People aren't healthy because they know 1,000 things. No. People are healthy because, number one, they find out the half dozen things. That's number one, find out. And number two, do not neglect to practice. That's the whole key. I can't give it to you in any simpler form. Find out the half dozen things. Now, sometimes it takes a while to find those major things. We pick up one or two and then we let it go. Finally, we master it. But the rest of it is simply do not neglect. If you'll just start cleaning up neglect. Mama taught an apple a day. Does what? I got a good question for this intelligent audience. What if that's true? You say, well, if that's true, Mr. Rohn, that would certainly be easy to do. Then what is the problem? It's easy not to do. That's the problem. The problem is not lack of information. The problem is simply we don't do the information that's been handed to us. Simple stuff. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. Anybody can do it. But what's easy to do is easy not to do. Or the guy messed up the saying. The guy says a Hershey bar a day. You say, no, you've been watching too much television. It's not Hershey bar, it's what? Apple. And if you lack the refined intelligence, and you go for the Hershey bar instead of the apple, then you've got to put up with your own poor health. It's nobody's fault but your own. A few basics you won't practice, a few ideals you won't let them serve you, then you got to put up with your own empty bank account, empty heart, empty soul, not enough vitality, not enough health. I'm telling you, anybody that wants to can rearrange all of that. And here's where life change starts. For your notes, I can't give it to you in any simple form. Here it is. It starts with an apple. Where else would you start if you wanted to improve your life? You don't need the exotic stuff, I'm telling you. Basic 1, 2, 3 stuff is what did it for me. And all you've got to do to start now the process of life change is start somewhere. And it doesn't even matter where. You can start with good health or you can start with something else. The key is to start by saying, I'm going to start the process in each category of finding by my own research. And that's why seminars are so valuable. That's why information is so valuable. That's why somebody willing to take the time to share is so valuable. Is to help boil it down in some form to the half a dozen few things that takes care of most of it. And then let me get on with practicing it. And where you start doesn't matter. The process of life change can start with as simple a process as an apple a day, which means I'm on the road to cleaning up neglect. I'm going to walk around the block. I'm going to get the next book of my new library. I'm going to get a journal. Shove taught me to keep a journal. He said, don't just let ideas get by you. Don't trust your memory. If you're serious about really becoming an entrepreneur, if you're serious about affecting other people's lives, if you're serious about fortune, if you're serious about wealth and health, if you're serious, start collecting ideas. Go over them and review them. Then jot these questions down. Question number 1, what makes life valuable? Interesting philosophical question. What makes life valuable? Human life. Now that we find ourselves on this spinning planet, a chance to live a human life, what would make it valuable? Second question, what makes life worthwhile? Third question, what makes life work well? Good practical question. Now under work well, we could put, spiritually, socially, personally, economically, physically. There's a lot of different aspects to making life work well. But that'll suffice because those questions I think are very vitally important. What makes life worthwhile? What makes it valuable? What makes it work well? And all the aspects. If your life doesn't work well in some aspects, what would you fix? And I've got some good answers on that. There's usually about a half a dozen things that makes 80% of the difference. That's the formula. There's usually about a half a dozen things that makes 80% of the difference. Now, what's interesting about this formula is it's not exactly half dozen and it's not exactly 80%. This is just sort of a unique way to say it. Here's another way we might say it. Keep looking, whatever the project is. Keep looking for the few things that makes the most difference. Boil it down to the most important components that'll take care of most of it. And I think if you look through a lot of major subjects, you'll come to this same conclusion. To be good in sales, there's about a half a dozen major things to practice that'll give you an 80% chance of really being good in sales. For a management career, there's about a half a dozen things. For a good marriage, there's about a half a dozen things. For good health, there's not 1,000 things you have to work on. There's not 500 things you have to do every day. About a half a dozen will take care of most of it. Now, what was exciting about this formula when Mr. Sho first shared it with me was if there's only a half a dozen things, I could learn it. I mean, if there's 500 things, probably left me out. I only went to 1 year of college, halfway through my second year. So if it's going to take a lot of education, it's probably going to leave me out. But when he said, no, there's about a half a dozen things that'll take care of most of it, whatever the project is. I said, then if it's a half a dozen, I can learn it. So here's what I found out. Life change really is very simple. It's really very easy. For financial independence, there's about half a dozen things. No one, especially in this country, needs to go without financial independence because it's not that difficult to master. There's not 1,000 things to learn. You don't have to go through all of the technology over a lifetime. Just a few things, major things, that'll take care of most of it, and you've got it made. And in boiling things down for my teenage friends, that's what they're interested in knowing. Can I do it? Can someone like me master it? And the answer is always yes. I tell them I got rich by the time I was 31. I was a millionaire by the time I was 31. My teacher taught me well that 6 years. From being broke at age 25 to being rich at age 31. And kids say, wow, how did you do that? Here's the best news I give them. It was easy. Best news they've heard for a long time. Here's somebody talking to you that got rich by age 31, and he says it was easy. Now someone says, well, Mr. Rohn, if it was so easy to get rich by age 31, how come everybody else around you during that same period of time, how come they didn't get rich? Here's why. It's easy not to. That's the best advice I can give you. In case you have to leave early, that's the heartbeat of my whole seminar. What's easy for one should be easy for all. Someone says, no, Mr. Rohn, for all the rest of the people around you during that time, for them it was hard, and for you it was easy. That's not true. You couldn't debate me on that point in front of this intelligent audience. What's easy for one is easy for everyone. However, let me put it now in a philosophical phrase since I tend to be a bit philosophical. Here it is. What's easy to do is also easy not to do. That's the difference between success and failure. That's the difference between pennies and fortune. That's the difference in flourishing and not having much. That's the difference between trinkets and treasures. What's easy to do is also easy not to do. I can give you in one sentence how I got rich by 31. Here it is. If you're ready, say I'm ready. Ready. Here it is. I did not neglect. Now you've got to underline that. I did not neglect to do the easy things that I could do every day for 6 years. Now once you've got that, you've got the heartbeat for life change. Underline, did not neglect. Major reason why people don't have it all. Neglect. How else would you describe it? Especially living in a country like this. And here's the problem with neglect for your notes. It starts as an infection. And if you don't take care of it, it becomes a disease. Indulge in neglect long enough and it'll... Written history's what? About 6,000 years. There's nothing new here. Now, there might be a new way to say it. There might be a new way to apply it to the 20th century, getting ready for century 21. But this stuff is basic, it's old, it's fundamental. So be aware of somebody who comes along and says, we got new truth. Say, no, you can't have new truth. Truth is old. So be a little suspicious. If a guy says, we're manufacturing antiques, you got to come watch our plant. Wouldn't you be a little suspicious? You say, no, you can't manufacture antiques. Antiques are what? Old. So antiques are like truth. Truth is old. Now, just because you've discovered it is no sign it's new. Say, no, truth is old. The fundamentals go way back. The fundamentals of sowing and reaping go way back. The fundamentals, good, evil, go way back. I mean, there's nothing new here. All we need to do, though, is to just bring our intellectual discovery process to bear and see if we can't find those few things. Then the rest of it is to get busy practicing those few things. We might all agree on number one, philosophy. This is where the value of human life begins to show versus all other life forms. I call it simply a guidance system. Settling on certain questions and making decisions about what direction in life you're going to take, setting goals, making plans, this guidance system. I've boiled it down to each one's personal philosophy, a guidance system. And we all need a guidance system for two reasons. For your notes, number one, to avoid the dangers. Somebody's got to give us some clues first on how to avoid the dangers. And number two, to take advantage of the opportunities, to see and understand the opportunities, take advantage, and to avoid the dangers. It's about as simple as I can put it. A guidance system necessary to do that while we journey on the planet spinning through space. Philosophy. To develop this guidance system, we use our mind to think and to process ideas and information. It's about as simple as I can put it. That process helps us to develop this guidance system. Now, interestingly enough, only humans have this unique ability of all life forms on Earth. Dogs don't have it, alligators don't have it, spiders don't have it. Only humans have the ability to use their mind to think and process ideas and information and adjust this guidance system, however necessary, to make your dreams come true, to avoid more dangers, maximize more opportunities, and enrich your life. Only humans can do this. All of the life form is driven by the genetic code and instinct. A goose can only fly which direction in the winter? South. How come a goose has to go south in the winter? Because he's a goose. He can't go any other direction. But not true human beings. Human beings can go north. They can go south. They can go east. They can go west. Human beings can live one way for 5 years and then tear up that script and live another way for the next 5 years. Only humans can do that. It's unbelievable. Humans can double their income, triple their income, live one way for a while, totally scrap that idea, live another way for the next few years of their life. It's unbelievable. Humans can do this. Now, let me give you my best opinion. Each person's philosophy is the major factor in how your life works out. Each person's philosophy is the major factor in how your life works out. Now, up until I was 25, that would never have occurred to me, that my personal philosophy was the major factor. If you would have known me when I was 25 years old and you would have said, Jim Rohn, how come you find yourself here? This is pitiful. Living in America, you're broke, you got pennies in your pocket, you got nothing in the bank, creditors are calling, you're behind on your big mouth promises to your family, you've been to at least 1 year of college, how come you find yourself in this pitiful position? If you would have asked me that question when I was 25, it never would have occurred to me to blame my philosophy. That would not have occurred to me. I would not have said to you, well, I got this lousy philosophy, what else would you expect? I mean, that would not have occurred to me. What would have occurred to me to justify where I was at age 25, I would have said, well, it's the government. It's much easier to blame the government than to blame myself. It's those Democrats. They told us they would fix it. So that was a lot easier to blame. I used to blame the company. This is all they pay. Make the American dream come true with this paycheck. I used to blame the economy. I blamed interest rates. I used to blame taxes. Taxes are too high. Top federal tax rate when I first started paying taxes, 91%. I used to say that's too high, but now the top federal tax rate's about 33%. But people are still saying it's too high. How could that be? If it's gone from 91 down to 33, how could it be too high? I'm telling you, it isn't too high. But back then, that was a convenient excuse for me. I used to blame my negative relatives. They were always putting me down. My cynical neighbors won't loan me money. They were on my list. I used to blame the weather. I blamed the traffic. I blamed circumstances. This happens to me, and this happens to me, and then on top of that, this happens to me. And they expect you to do well by your family. All of these things I thought were the reasons why I was not doing well. Then I found out all of that was not true. Here's what I discovered that changed my life forever. Everything that happens outside of us is like the wind that blows. We've heard about the winds of economics, the winds of change, the winds of circumstance, the winds that are favorable and the winds that are unfavorable. The wind is always blowing. In America, we probably got the best wind that's blown in 6,000 years. And we all need a wind of all of this stuff happening to take us somewhere, to the dreams we've got, to the money we want, to the equities we want, to the treasures we want, what we want for our family, friends, and all the rest. Here's what we want. We've got the best wind in 6,000 years to take us there. But here's the clue. If you just let the wind blow, you won't be happy with your arrival. You won't be happy with where it blows you. You won't be happy with where it takes you. You say, well, what can you do about the blowing of the wind? Well, you can't do anything about the blowing of the wind except set a better sail. So draw you a little sail on your notes and take that home as a centerpiece of what I've shared with you this whole day. You cannot change the blowing of the wind, but you can change the set of the sail. That's why education is so important, to help you with ideas. It helps to alter a little bit the set of the sail. That's what the sermon is for on Sunday morning. That's what the lyrics of the song that prompt you to think are for. That's what the dialogue of the movie is for. That's what conversation is for. That's what education is for. That's what satellite is for. That's what a stream of ideas are for, to help you adjust and keep adjusting all of your life the set of the sail. Then I found out if you went to work on this in a concentrated way, you could so alter the course of your life that the outcome in a fairly short period of time would be absolutely almost overwhelming. For your money, for your health, for your relationship with your family, for equities of all kinds, business, whatever. Wouldn't matter. And you could finally set such a sail that after a while, you could care less anymore about the wind that blows. Why? It's not going to matter to you because you've learned how to set the sail. And interestingly enough, the same wind that blows others to disaster, blows others on the rocks, blows others on the beach, blows others to places they don't want to be. The same wind takes us to prosperity, takes us to all the dreams we've got and the things we want. Why? Because we've learned to intervene and set sail. That's the key. And that's why I lecture. That's why I speak. That's why I talk. That's why I talk to my children. That's why I talk to my grandchildren. That's why I talk to every ear I can get attention from. And that is, listen to ideas, whether they come from me or from someone else. Be a collector of good ideas. Get more serious about altering the course of your life. And you can, regardless of what happens the next 5 years, getting ready for the turn of the century, you can wind up where you want to be. The money, the joy, the pleasure, the satisfaction. Set of sail. Now, what is philosophy if it's so important? I teach kids how to be rich by 40, 35 if you're extra bright, much sooner if you find a unique opportunity. Kids say, hey, that sounds good to me. How do I do it? And I say, it starts with your philosophy. So kids ask me, what is philosophy? It's kind of a big word, so I've broken it down for them, made it easier for me to understand. Here's my definition of philosophy. Philosophy comes from, number one, the collection of all that you know. Gathering knowledge is the first key to developing the philosophical set of sail. And then number two, deciding which of this information is valuable enough to bet your money and your time. That's about as simple as I can put it. To change the set of sail, regardless of the wind that blows, first you search for knowledge. Then you got to sort through it and decide which of it is valuable enough to spend money and time. That is one of the best equations I know of. You might know 1,000 things, but you can't do 1,000 things. You've got to sort through a lot of information and boil it down to the things that really matter to you and utilize that as the most important pieces, deciding what's valuable. So first of all, we got to gather knowledge. When I have a chance to talk to my high school friends, first thing I tell them is, you got to have the information. Get it while you're here. Don't leave school without it. It's one of my little phrases for my high school friends. What they teach here, what you think of it, that's up to you. What you're going to do with it, that'll soon be up to you. But right now, this is the important thing, is to get it. You can sort through it. You can cast aside whatever's not going to work for you in the future. But the important thing is to be serious enough to get it. Okay? I teach them there's nothing worse than being stupid. Right? Being broke is bad, but being stupid's what's bad. And what's really bad is being broke and stupid. Nothing much worse than that unless you're sick. Right? Sick, broke, and stupid. That's about it. So number one, you've got to know. You've got to have the information. Now, where do we get ideas and information? We've got this marvelous ability here. like no other life form on earth has, to alter the course of our life. You don't have to keep flying south. If south is not getting you the money and the joy and the pleasure, I'm telling you, you can alter the course. You're not like just a blind animal that has to be driven by instinct and the genetic code. So, if we want to change our life, we've just got to use this marvelous mechanism to gather more ideas and information and see if it'll pay off for us. So where do we get this? Jot this down. Number one, from PE, I call it personal experience. Just make it a point from now on to learn more from your own personal experience. That's probably the best university in the world. Your own personal experience. You've been through enough that could teach you. Personal experience. Log the questions from your personal experience. Log the answers from your personal experience. Right? Learning is the beginning of wealth. Learning is the beginning of health. And here's where it can all start. Paying more attention to your own personal experience. One way to learn to do it right is what? Do it wrong. That's one way to learn. Now the key is, don't let it take too long. If you've done it wrong for 10 years, we suggest that's long enough. We don't suggest 10 more years just to prove a point. No. You can prove any point in 10 years. In 10 years, your health disciplines will be on track or what? Off track. Your financial independence will be on track or off track. It doesn't take that long to come to the conclusion based on your own personal experience, whether you're on track or off track. In a few years, you've either got the breath or you haven't got the breath. You got the money or you haven't got the money. You've got the self-esteem or you haven't got the self-esteem. I mean, it doesn't take much from your personal experience. Schoaf was swift to point out my personal experience. He said, let's learn from that. He said, Mr. Rohn, you've been working 6 years? I said, yes, sir. He said, how are you doing? I said, not very well. He said, I suggest you not do that anymore. What a swift analysis of my current situation. He said, couldn't we find out what happened the last 6 years so that you can alter the course the next 6 years? That had never occurred to me. He said, I'm telling you, we can learn so much from the last 6 that we can make the next 6 years totally different than the last 6. And that's exactly what he did for me. That second 6 years, my life so swiftly changed. It was absolutely incredible. At age 25, I was broke. At age 31, I was rich. And he said, Mr. Rohn, if you'll make these changes starting today, he said, the next 6 years of your life will be totally different than the last 6. I took him up on that. So now let me give you that promise. In case you have to leave early, here's the promise that changed my life for your notes. He said, if you will change, everything will change for you. If you will change, everything will change for you. Before I heard that promise, up until age 25, I used to go through the day with my fingers crossed, hoping things would change. Hoping my boss would change, hoping the company would change, hoping the weather would change, certainly hoping circumstances would change, hoping the wind would change, hoping the economy would change, something would change that would give me a better chance to have a better life. Then I found out that's not what needs to change.